Hi there, this is David and welcome to the top 10 worst RPG dungeons Sega CD, Dreamcast, and Saturn edition. While I've covered some Sega games in my previous 8 and 16-bit videos, here I'll be looking into the more advanced consoles up until they went third-party only. Sega was always an oddball to me. I never had any of their systems growing up because while they claimed that they did what Nintendo don't, they didn't actually have very many RPGs compared to the NES, SNES, and later the PlayStation. Because of that, it took me a lot of time, gameplay, emulation, research, and consulting with friends to compile this list. So come and join me for the Worst Dungeons Sega Edition. Number 10. Shining Wisdom, The Sand Labyrinth. Shining Wisdom is an action RPG and part of the long-running Shining series released for the Saturn. I do like the Shining games, but Wisdom had some questionable dungeons, such as the Fire Labyrinth and this place. The sand kind of acts like ice does in other RPGs, making it difficult to maneuver around, and the enemies are also strategically placed to be in the most annoying spots possible, knocking you back down to lower floors since you can't really dodge them all that well. There's also switches that turn the sand to stone and vice versa, which is kinda cool. However, when the platforms are sand, they'll disintegrate, making you fall to lower floors. But here's the kicker. At one point you have a mandatory fall to get to the mole claw, and the only way to know how to get there is by trial and error. The claw is used to dig in the sand, however the entire place is filled with sand, and it's annoyingly unintuitive as to where exactly you have to dig to move on. Number 9. Vey, Under Toth. Vey is a pretty cool turn-based RPG released for the Sega CD by Working Designs, so it has that great humor and localization that they're so well known for. But even Victor Ireland couldn't redeem the labyrinth under the Shrine of Toth. All the treasures you get here are infinitely worse than what you've already got equipped, so it's pointless to even collect them. I mean, why do they even bother giving you them? And in order to collect the useless treasures, you have to go through a giant maze combined with a hellacious random encounter rate, with no landmarks to speak of, that twists and turns around, leading to tons of dead ends. Then to really gild the lily, when you finally make it to the end of this godforsaken place, you gather the legendary armor, but you can't even use the stuff because you don't have all 5 orbs. The only redeeming quality, I guess, is that you can use the Vey Blade, but even that isn't worth going through this place. Number 8. Lunar, the Silver Star, the Meribian Sewers, and the Cave of Trials. So you've played the other iterations of the Lunar, the Silver Star, have you? To be fair, there's a lot of them, but they were all based off the enhanced, user-friendly Lunar Silver Star story complete for the PlayStation 1. The original, though, released for the Sega CD, is a whole nother beast, complete with all the trappings of a 1992 RPG. 2 dungeons in particular, the Meribian Sewers and the Cave of Trials, are just infuriating, though. In both cases, all the monsters within are unaffected by normal weapons, so if Alex is to stand a chance, he has to use magic to get by. Also, when Ramus joins you in the sewers, he's no prize, having no magic to speak of, and just being completely incompetent combat-wise, and later Alex is all alone in that Cave of Trials. This is no fun at all because he's not exactly known for his magical ability. Thankfully, these 2 dungeons were changed in the remakes. Number 7. Panzer Dragoon Saga, The Underground Ruins of Uru. Here we have a fantastic, almost mythical RPG, mostly due to its rarity and difficulty to emulate. Released on the Saturn, most of the game takes place either exploring the world on your dragon or as Edge, wandering around towns. But not here in these ruins. You end up losing your dragon and you have to ride around on essentially a penis. Well, that actually kinda sounds like my type of game. But all joking aside, you're given a floater, which is piloted the same way as the dragon. However, it can't fly vertically, open certain treasures, or gain levels. As such, it has much fewer HP, as well as no berserk techniques, which makes the level just awfully boring and time-consuming. It doesn't help that it's pretty claustrophobic, being the game's first fully interior area. It's 5 subterranean floors full of dark labyrinthine passages, populated by various mutated creatures. I mean, I love the game as much as the next guy, but sometimes I feel like I left part of my soul down in those tunnels. Number 6. Evolution 2, A Far Off Promise, The Crypt Maze. Released for the Dreamcast and later combined with its predecessor and ported to the GameCube as Evolution Worlds, the game combines randomly generated dungeons with traditional dungeons. By now, we should all know just how much I hate random dungeons, so I'm not going to talk about that here. Instead, I'm going to talk about the Crypt Maze, where you have 15 floors of this BS to put up with. At least the designers got the name of the place right so you know what you're getting yourself into. All 15 floors are a maze through and through. It's chock full of traps that will paralyze you, pillars hiding both enemies and treasures, and false walls that hide mandatory hidden rooms. Oddly enough, the crypt isn't Egyptian themed, and instead it's filled with ice, so you have sliding puzzles, and most of the time you're going to be sliding right into the encounters. Add in teleporters for good measure, and you have all that you need for a spectacularly heinous dungeon. Number 5. Lunar Eternal Blue Red Dragon Cave. Everything that I said about Lunar Silver Star applies to its sequel too. The complete version cleaned up so many things that it's almost unrecognizable. One of, well, really 4 things that the remake streamlined are the dragon caves, the red one being easily the worst of the bunch. But to me, it's the sum of their parts that makes it just so terrible. The first 2 aren't so bad considering that the white dragon cave is just long, mazy, boring, and filled to the brim with teleport puzzles. And the blue dragon cave is long beyond belief with a nasty boss fight at the end. But it gets pretty bad with the last 2. The black dragon cave has pitfall mazes where you'll constantly be dropping down to previous floors to get treasures and backtrack only to do it again. And we're talking tons of trial and error to move on with copious amounts of backtracking if you're without a map, or if you want to get all the treasure. But the red dragon cave takes the cake with tons of obscured paths, moving platforms, and switches to stop lava flows, and then, in the biggest bastard move of them all, they disabled the white dragon wings so you have to walk back out after you're exhausted from exploring the cave and defeating the boss. It's inexcusable. Number 4. Grandia 2, Birthplace of the Gods. Released for the Dreamcast and later ported to the PlayStation 2, Grandia 2 is one of my favorite games of all time. But not everything can be perfect. I mean, you do have this god-awful place. It's essentially a poorly designed sewer dungeon, complete with switches to open doors and bridges to get from one path to the other. The only thing missing is the water. There are 3 colored switches that open 3 correspondingly colored doors, but getting to those doors is quite the chore considering that the place is a maze full of demons that can one-shot you. So because of this, it almost becomes something like a stealth section. Especially because eventually you're going to have to backtrack and hit the switches again to shut certain doors to proceed. It's incredibly annoying, and having to constantly move the camera around is nothing to keep you orientated either. It just drags out the climax of the game even longer, and the music, or lack thereof, really just makes you want to quit. Number 3. Pier Solar. All of them? Maybe it's cheating to include this game since it wasn't really released during the console's heyday and only gained notoriety by being a modern game released on retro consoles, but I don't care. This shit pissed me off. The developers clearly don't understand the difference between challenging the player and wasting their time, and this crap tested my patience to its limit. All the dungeons are difficult to navigate because they're enormous and everything looks so similar. Not to mention the constant barrage of random encounters take forever. Also, being ambushed by the mobs is tied to your dashing. So if you don't want to get ambushed every 5 seconds, you're going to have to walk around as slow as molasses. What brain trust made that decision? The environments are so poorly drawn that many times you literally can't see where you're supposed to be going, and mandatory paths are often hidden behind solid walls, and switches are never just out in the open, they're always obscured by something. I understand hiding treasures and other optional content that way, but I was sick to death of running at black walls just to see if I could proceed with the places. Number 2. Shining in the Holy Ark, the Tower of Illusion. Lufia 2, you've got competition because just getting to this place has to be the hardest puzzle in gaming. Screw the world's most difficult trick. Released for the Saturn, Shining in the Holy Ark's Tower of Illusion and its convoluted, asinine entrance puzzle is just the worst. Then, once you're finally inside, the puzzles don't stop. This place is enough to make you want to check into an insane asylum. From pulling levers to change the flow of the floor, to spinning tiles that point you in a random direction, and timed buttons that you must press to open doors, combined with pitfalls everywhere. Every floor has its own obnoxious gimmick, and to make it even worse, it's populated by mobs who loves to cast instant death. Now, this is a tower, So you would think that all you have to do is climb straight up the thing, right? Wrong. In order to progress, you're constantly climbing up and down floors, as well as falling down random pitfalls. So while the tower has 6 levels to traverse, the final boss is actually on the 2nd level. The place is so convoluted it's crazy. But that's not the worst of it. Here we have number 1, Albert Odyssey, Legend of Eldine, Fargasta. Here we have the cream of the crap, Fargasta. Yet another Working Designs game released for the Saturn. This place is a nightmare. I can't imagine going through here before the internet, and there really doesn't seem to be any guidebook made for it either. This could be the quintessential example of a great game being ruined by a terrible dungeon. You begin at the top of Fargasta Tower after your airship's destroyed, and your goal is to make it down to the bottom. Sounds simple enough, you just take the elevators down. Except that each and every floor is a teleport maze from hell. Making your own maps is hard enough, but then combine it with teleports and it's pretty much near impossible. There aren't really any landmarks to speak of either, and to further confuse you, the teleports don't always take you back to where you came from. There are elevators that take you up or down to seemingly randomly predetermined floors, combined with crystals that do the same thing. There's really no rhyme or reason to it, and nothing makes any sense. It's bastard moves like this all throughout the entire 8 floors that make you just want to pull your hair out. There's a reason why most people quit this game hopelessly lost in Fargasta. I hope that you guys enjoyed this look back at Sega's heyday and the worst dungeons held within some fantastic games. This has been David. If you liked this, please like, comment, and subscribe, and have a good day.